Howdy folks. Sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. It's been a couple of weeks, but that's the caveats of working construction. In the winter months you've got time to do stuff. In the springtime it starts to get a little busier. In the summertime you're just swamped, and weekends are filled with honey-do lists and everything else that needs done. So tonight I'm watching the kids. That my wife is at work, so they're in the house and they're being really good right now. So I decided to come outside in the garage and share with you guys something that I figured out. I was watching YouTube and I saw a guy making arrowheads out of spoons, and I thought that was really cool. And I was thinking about it, and I wanted to go to Goodwill and pick up some spoons and make my own arrowheads. Great to throw in like a little Altoids tin, put them in your wallet. They're really easy to store, and they're really hard to reproduce out in nature. So a steel arrowhead is a good thing to have on you. So I decided to give it a go, but while I was working, I found some knockouts off of the electrical panel. I'm an electrician, and these knockouts look to me like they would make perfect arrowheads. These arrowheads I'm going to make out of knockouts from an electrical panel. These are, I got 5 of them here. And they're just, they knock out the mat of a panel and you put the breaker in place of this. So this is the finished product, and it works pretty good. So stick with me and I'll show you how to turn this into this. So first thing we're going to do is, if you notice, maybe you notice, maybe you don't, it's a little curved. So we're gonna stick it in the vise and flatten it, and then we're going to mark it and cut it. So come along and we'll do that. Now, first thing I want to say is this is some pretty thin gauge steel for an arrowhead. I've seen some guys making arrowheads out of spoons, which is about the same thickness as this. So I made one and I thought it was pretty cool. I might make some arrows and hunt some small game with them just to see how they do. But essentially, I'll just stick it in there. See if I can flatten it. Sounds like the kids are playing with the dog. Okay, so it's pretty flat. I'm not going to get crazy with hammering it flat or anything like that. I don't remember what I did with the last one. It was a while ago. There we go. That's pretty flat. Okay. So then I took a Sharpie and I just drew on freehand, actually. I freehanded this one, but this is a pretty good design. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just trace it. And my thought process behind these, other than the fact that it's just a fun project, is if you're really in a, have like a survival kit or anything like that, this fits like in an Altoids tin or even in your wallet. You can put a couple of these in your wallet and you'll never be without them. Because arrowheads are going to be the hardest thing to make in the wild as far as a bow and arrow. The cordage to make it is also going to be pretty tricky, but even if you have 7 feet of paracord, you can pull the inner strands out, twist them together, tie a couple of bowline knots at either end, and bam, you got your bowstring, and then you've obviously got your arrowheads. So what I did with this is I just cut it out with some tin snips. Again, this is a pretty soft metal, so it's easy to cut. Okay, so there's our basic form. And of course, like I said, it's thin, so it's all cattywampus. So back in the vise it goes. Just to get it back straight again. I'd be interested to see how these fly, and honestly, I'm thinking of hunting squirrel with them. So I'm just gonna rip off the ends there, and I'm gonna clean that up on the vise. So let's, or not, I'm sorry, on the grinder wheel. So let's go over to the grinder wheel and start doing that. Okay. So we're over on the grinder wheel. Let's kick this on. I'm gonna take the speed all the way up. This has got a painting coating on it. I don't know if it's going to matter or not down the road when I take that off. I can't remember. Last one I built, or I made this one last time, I don't know, probably 3 months ago. Alright, so it took pretty good shape right off the bat. I'm going to try and even up these two pieces here and here, just for aesthetics, I guess. Okay. Okay, so that's the basic form. That's how I did it with these knockouts. These are off the Siemens panel, in case anybody needs to know. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it back on the grinding wheel. I'm going to take off all of the paint, and then I'm going to sharpen both edges. And I'll show you how I do that after I get the paint off. You're not going to want to see me grind the paint off of this. So I'll get back to you just as soon as the paint's ground off of this. Okay, so there, I've got the paint off of it. I remembered as I was grinding it on the wheel here how I did the last one. Paint stripper. I did not do it on this one. Didn't feel I needed to. The grinding wheel worked, the wire wheel worked perfectly. And so now what we've got is a very soft, thin arrowhead. I kind of used the, I don't know if you can see it or not, the grinder to put an edge on this side and this side. But what I'm going to do is take a really fine file, excuse me, and grind this and this. So it is a nice and sharp blade. This is just kind of my response to the spoon arrowhead, just making arrowheads out of things that you have around and available to you. Obviously spoons are pretty accessible and they're already nice and hard. And they're, yeah, see, that's already good and sharp. This is just down and dirty. Okay, so that's got a pretty good edge on each side of it, but now we have the problem of this being a really soft metal. So I've seen before, I've done this before, I did it with the other one where we heat it all up and really get it nice and red hot and dip it in water to harden it. And once we do that, then we can get these edges even sharper on a grinding or on a sharpening stone. So without further ado, let's get that set up. Okay, so got it in a pair of pliers, my Folgers can full of water. I'm just going to heat this up till it gets nice and hot. Hopefully we can get it cherry. You can already see it starting to blue. You guys are all wondering whether or not my hand's going to get hot on these pliers, and so am I. Probably should have put on a canvas glove before I did this, but I can already tell that the tip is starting to glow a little bit. So hopefully we'll be okay there. Alright, now, by no means am I a blacksmith or a metallurgist or anything like that. So if any of you guys that know what I'm doing, see any errors or anything where I could change what I'm doing to make it make this better, let me know in the comments. That'd be great. I would very much appreciate it. This thing is definitely glowing. So without further ado, we are going to dip it. Just right in water. We're not going to try to lower the temperature slowly by putting it in oil. We're going to lower it rapidly, making it nice and brittle and hard, which is what I think I want. I want a nice hard piece of steel for my arrow tip. So here we go. Nice and cold. So at this point, I'm going to get the sharpening stone out, and I'm going to run it down here and down here and try and get this thing just as sharp as I can. So stick with me while I dig that stuff out. Okay, my sharpening stone is kind of dirty and oily, so I'm just going to dip it in the same water, scrub it with a brush, just real quick, get it, open it back up. And of course I got a coarse side and a fine side. I'm going to use the coarse side. Okay. I use regular 3-in-1 oil. And essentially I'm just pushing the oil around on it. And you can see it's going to take a while to get a decent edge on it. I don't know if you can see or not. It's sharpening here and here till it gets all straight, and then it'll all be shiny from being ground down. There you go, yeah. So that's my goal, is just get this whole thing smooth. Push the oil over there, turn it around. Push the oil over there. Now this probably will take some time because, oh, actually that's looking pretty good. And that's sharp. I guess it won't take some time. I don't know if I'll get this to be a razor's edge, but that's my goal. Obviously the sharper the better. Yeah, that's nice and sharp. Alright, so I'm going to do the other side now. One side, the other side. Just a little bit more oil. Still needs some work. Still needs more work. This side's got a pretty good edge. I'm going to go a little bit more on this side. I don't know if you can tell, but it's the blade's not even smooth here. It must have been rougher on the cut, the rough cut. So I'm going to keep going. until I'm happy with it. And then I'll flip the stone over and I'll use the finer grind. Yeah, it's getting close. It's getting real close. Yeah, I can see it's coming at it from that angle. I can tell it's kind of convexed a little bit right in here. So I think I'm gonna have to work on that one a little bit more. That first one, man, it's ready. It's ready for the honing stone. This one I'm gonna keep working on. It's pretty sharp. Turn it over. When I hone, a lot of times I'll go in circular motions like this. Sorry. Circular motions like this. It's just the important thing is to maintain that same angle. You can go like this, like if it were a blade. Now, remind you, I'm only sharpening one side, but the other side, I'll come across flat just to the burrs. But the angling edge is only going to be on one side of this arrowhead. All right. So there's my take on a homemade arrowhead. Literally took me about 15 minutes to make this. I can make 3 of these, put them in my wallet. You really, as long as you keep your wallet with you, which sometimes I don't. But probably be better if I put them in my pack, because if I'm in the woods, my pack is with me. My wallet is not necessarily with me. But I just thought it would be fun and interesting to make some arrowheads out of materials that we have just laying around, so maybe that we may take for granted. I mean, you know, how many times have I taken those out of a panel and just thrown them into the steel bin and not really thought about them. But that particular day that I brought those home from work, I was thinking about making arrowheads out of spoons. And I saw these, and I thought, oh wow, a lot of my work's already done for me. These are already flat, relatively speaking, and they're good shape. And it was really easy to do. So later on this year, I'm going to attach these to some homemade arrows, and I'm going to shoot them. I've got a little 25-pound recurve that I'll shoot these out of. We'll see what they do, what they don't do. But in the meantime, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great time in the woods. Be safe and enjoy. Thanks, guys.